Ken Blevens is the Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate. He has been a small business owner in the real estate business since 1970 and has membership in many professional real estate and civic organizations in the state. He has run for Senate at least once before in 2002, and this, we think, may be his second trip here to Temple Beth Abraham. He lives in Bow, and we're delighted to have him with us. And by prior arrangement, Mr. Blevens will just be speaking and not taking any questions.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to the Southern New Hampshire Jewish Men's Club for having me here today. I'm glad to be here. I bring a little different perspective to the race for the Senate as well as the Senate itself. I listened to all the candidates this morning, and one thing that seems to be missing in the conversation and so forth, and that's the individual. That's the individual. Everybody talks about a free country or a free group, and they leave the individual completely out of the equation. I believe this country was founded based on individual rights. And it's just so important to have individual rights if you're going to have a free people. But without individual rights, you don't have free people. And that's one of my reasons for running for the U.S. Senate. And if I can, I'd like to get into the issue that's on everybody's mind, and that's the economy. And what has happened to the economy, and in my opinion, why it has happened. And what I'd like to do is relate this to something else that's on a lot of people's minds. And that's education, and particularly higher education. Now, if you could look at the perspective that I give you to everything the federal government does, I think that's very important in the equation. We take higher education, and we have a Congress who is very interested in our younger people getting a higher education. So Congress passes a law that sets a quota that institutes of higher education have to meet. They have to have so many minorities. And believe me, I have nothing against minorities. And this is not the issue here. The issue is the way government works. So Congress passes a law that you have to have so many people attend a college. So the college says, fine. In order to have these people attend the college, we have to increase the area to put them, increase the cost of the college itself. So in increasing the size of the college and the cost of the college, we have to therefore go up on the cost. And this is the part of the cycle that I want to bring to your attention that happens in every part of federal government. So Congress now provided an avenue for minority students to go to college. The college says it's going to cost us more to do this, so they go up on the cost. So what does Congress do in turn? Congress turns around and says, gee, these minority students can't afford the college. Let's give them low-income loans, Pell Grants, to support their ability to go to college. So by giving them Pell Grants, now the college says, wow, these people have all kinds of money. Let's increase the tuition even further. And this is the kind of cycle that continually happens with government. If you want to take the bailout, I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for 36 years. By the way, I've never taken a cent from the realtor PAC, and I've never contributed to it because I don't believe in grouping things together to try to get the best outcome because you very seldom get the best outcome. I hope everybody understands what I tried to bring to you regarding the education issue and how there's a cycle that really government is standing in the way of the true free market. If there was a true free market in the education area, you would have a college its cost rather than putting the government into the equation. And I believe that both parties in Washington, in this Senate race, I understand that between the two parties, they're going to be spending $10 million to be elected to a $200,000 job. I'm sure you've heard this argument before. The question is, where does this $10,000 come from? It comes from the people who produce things that we as citizens and voters buy. It also increases everyone's costs. We really have to eliminate this. How do you eliminate it? You vote for someone who is not on the payroll, who does not put out negative ads against one another. And my best area as far as getting elected is the people who come to me every day and say, I can't put up with it any longer. You know, the negative ads keep going back and forth, and I say, look, listen to them and believe them. They're absolutely right. When John Sununu talks against Jean Shaheen and brings up a negative ad, he's right. When Jean Shaheen brings a negative ad about John Sununu, he's right. Believe him. And that's where I'm getting most of my support, is from the negative ads that are coming from these other people. What other area can I go to? Healthcare. Healthcare, there was a lot of discussion about healthcare here today. Most of your healthcare that comes through Medicaid and Medicare is government subsidized by you, the people. How is it subsidized? When you go to the hospital and you don't have Medicaid or Medicare, you subsidize the payment that the doctor receives from the federal government by a larger portion of your insurance going to pay for the doctor or the health care. And it happens throughout government. I would say all of the people that I'm running against, and most libertarians are running against, say that the free market does not work. The free market absolutely works. It's government control that destroys the free market. On the issue of the bailout, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae were a creation of the government. They created these. They didn't control it, but they created it. Now, John Sununu says that Jean Shaheen never solved the education issue in New Hampshire, and she had 6 years to do it. I can tell you John Sununu's been in the federal government for 12 years. He said he proposed legislation to resolve this back in, I think, 2004. If he was any better than Jean Shaheen, he would have solved the problem. And what he says is, they didn't vote for it. There was a reason they didn't vote for it. The reason is that cycle that continues to go. And as long as we don't break that cycle, we're going to have the same kind of outcome. And again, I've been running for office for quite a while, and I've never seen so much discontent among the voters. I get calls and emails every day, not only about federal issues, but about state issues, and there is just so much regulation and so many costs that we cannot continue to survive the rate we're going. If you people as voters don't create some kind of a change by getting rid of the two-party system, which absolutely is only one party, everybody is talking about bipartisanship and working together. But the fact is, when they work together, they're working against you, the voter. The free market system is the best system there is, and it should be adhered to, and anything that controls the free market is absolutely wrong. You know, if I've got a few minutes, I'd like to take any questions that you have of me, if someone has a question. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, I'd like to wrap it up then from here. And
I think somebody over here had one.
Maybe foreign policy in the Middle East. What is your stance?
I'm sorry?
What is your stance on the foreign policy in the Middle East?
The foreign policy. I would walk right down the same road that Ron Paul walks down. I believe we are an interventionist country, and we should not be involved in all these countries. As far as the war in Iraq, in '02, when I ran against John Sununu and Jean Shaheen, I was opposed to the war. I was opposed to it for two reasons. One, Congress should never have delegated the authority to go to war to the president. That was an absolute mistake. And I think it was Senator Byrd that stood up on the Senate floor with his Constitution in his hand and said, you can't do this, it's against the Constitution. They did it anyway. They continually to violate the Constitution. As far as being an interventionist country, I think it's absolutely wrong. One thing that John Sununu voted for, and I don't know if you people are aware of it or not, is called LOST. It's the Law of the Sea Treaty. And today we're talking about drilling offshore. Do you realize that by signing the Law of the Sea Treaty, it gives the UN the ability to create a system where you have to petition the UN in order to get permission to drill on the Outer Banks. And there's a charge to get this permit to drill in the Outer Banks. And I'm thinking it's a tremendous amount of money. It's things that most people don't realize. The Law of the Sea Treaty actually gave up our sovereignty to the UN. People are talking about the UN possibly taxing the world to continue. This is the way they'll do it, through treaties like Law of the Sea Treaty, which gives them the right to tax people on the open oceans. And President Reagan in 1982 was absolutely against the Law of the Sea Treaty because the United States Senate is responsible for all the treaties that are signed. The Law of the Sea Treaty nullified that and said the UN is going to control the seas, and it's a major problem.
You've heard your Republican opponent here, and throughout the campaign, I know you've been listening to some of the things your Democrat opponent has said. Of all the policies that they've promoted, what, if any of them, would you say are actually constitutional?
None. None. Absolutely none.
Thank you.
You know, this country was founded as a republic, with the Constitution being the ultimate law. And the Constitution is not being followed. How can we say that we are a free people when you take the very fiber of what we live by, the Constitution, and completely disregard it? Disregard it to form groups that work against one another. It's absolutely wrong. I would be an absolute strict constitutionalist if I went to Washington. If you people were good enough to vote for me and send me to Washington, I'd be a strict constitutionalist. I would not vote for anything that violates the constitutional rights of all of us.
Thank you.
Very, very much. We appreciate you coming by and spending some time with us this morning. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I think it's the second one. I don't have another one.
As I said, next over to the number of candidates in the room.
Thank you, Ken.
First, I know he's signals in the background.